This is a short letter, but I think it's a very powerful letter. Dear Building Better Leaders, I'm leading what most people would call a dream team. They're fast, sharp, reliable, and we have built a strong reputation in the company. But it's starting to feel like we're victims of our own success. Because we deliver, we keep getting more work from upper management. Because we never complain, no one thinks we're under pressure. The team won't say it outright, but I can see it. Fatigue, lack of motivation, passive-aggressive comments like, of course it's just a game, right? So I feel it too, but I don't want to look like I'm making excuses. How do I advocate for our bandwidth without damaging our reputation as the A team? So before I pass the time to you, I think I just want to contextualize this for the letter writer. You're not alone. This is the very classic competence trap that all of us go through, even if you're an individual contributor as well. Because you don't complain, you get more job. And because you get more job, you don't want to come across as incompetent, so you just take it on, in this case. And I think a lot of times as a manager before, and I was guilty of it many times, I don't take care of my A team that much because the A team can work, right? They don't complain. So in fact, I spend a lot of time trying to take care of the B team and even the C teams, right? In this case, and because of that, the A team will resent because hey, I'm actually sacrificing for you.
Yeah.
You're taking care of the B team and C team, which they're not even interested to be there. I'm not too sure why are you spending so much time with them, right? So that is something which could be a blind spot for most managers themselves, that they spend, I mean, it's only natural you want to help those who cannot perform in this case, which I can understand, but they forget that there is this thing called an A team. So just wanted to kind of like bookmark this in terms of what a competence trap is all about. But over to you. Any thoughts for this letter writer, Eileen?
Yeah, for me, I think in my view, it's about having that conversation, and again, right? Like, it's not about going. Firstly, I think that you gotta remove this mindset of complaining, lah. Like, or if I'm gonna raise anything, it's a complaint. It's not a complaint. Like, we are all working, we are all adults, we are having conversation. That's one reframe I definitely want to go. I think that is similar when people also give me this feedback, like, oh, I don't want to give feedback to the person because I don't want to say bad things. I'm like, huh? But if the person don't hear it, like, how on earth would they learn, right? And all of that. So for me, it's we gotta reframe this mindset. It's about sitting down and having a conversation with the senior team or his or her boss to say, look, I appreciate and I'm very excited about all this work that we are doing and da 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 da. However, I am noticing this, right? And if even more, if you have some data to support you, great. Like for example, we are falling behind on some of our deadlines, or we might be, I observe that the quality of the work, that we are delivering now to other clients are, say, being impacted. My team is falling sick, for example, X number of hours. Again, data being data oriented, right? When you put something that's a bit more objective in front of seniors, the no senior I would go say, oh, I don't believe your data. I don't think anybody will ever say that. It's like, huh?
I don't believe you.
Yeah, nobody will actually say that. But when you tend to have conversations that are too emotional, then people think that the emotions are overtaking the conversations rather than an objective conversation. So that would be, to be honest, firstly, reframe. It's not a complaint, right? But second, it's about just conversation. And then backed it by data. And then the third thing, I think most often than not, I do see sometimes managers don't do this, is talk about the impact to the business.
Yeah.
Because for us as seniors, that's what that's every night that we go to bed, wake up, think about the business, wake up, you think about the business, right? So what does that impact have on this team now has on the business? And if this team, say, crumble or don't deliver or start to have issues, the impact to the business. I think that those are the, I would say, adult conversations we need to have. Rather than just say or complaining why you always give us more work. That's not the right conversation to have.
Okay. So, I mean, same points, right? First, don't complain or reframe it. It's not really complaining, it's about having conversation. I think a lot of time, just from the last letters that we replied as well, we talked about backing it up with data, right? And I like what you say about impact, because ultimately that's what the senior leaders are, that's what keeping them awake at night. So I think you're right. So a lot of times when I received complaints last time, when I was leading a team, a lot of times it sounds like complaints, literally.
Yeah.
Oh, is that so okay? So, but I've also received those kind of I would say very objective to say that, okay, Kausern, this is I just want to let you know that the team is currently overworked, right? Overwork here means what, right? So this is what these are like, for example, we have been missing deadlines and so on. Now understand that that we're actually taking care of the biggest client that we have at this point in time. Now, if we don't do anything about it, we may lose this client, right? This client is giving us, I don't know, like 5 million a year or something like that. Where are we going to get another 5 million if we're going to lose this client? So when they have such conversations like that, immediately it switches from emotions to objective.
Yeah.
Then I think then it's okay. You got my attention. Let's figure it how to figure this out, right? Because if not, then it sounds very emotional in this case, right? So I think that part of the not a lot of managers, unfortunately, will want to be able to dig deeper to say, look, I hear you, but what is the impact? They don't. Most of the time when they start to hear complaints, they will kind of like deal with it, that kind of thing,
Correct.
right? Yeah. So
Then it feels like just a sounding session, like just a sounding
yeah,
board. And then they go, yeah, I hear you, and we'll keep that in mind. But then the next thing, when something else in the business happens, it's the last thing they keep in mind, because they have to
yeah,
think about the business. I
yeah,
think, just maybe for me, one more thing is, sometimes what you discover is, if you have an adult conversation about situations, you will realize that maybe senior management might open up and tell you more about what you may not be seeing, for example, right? And maybe the senior management person might also say, actually, the reason why I might be handing more of the work to you is because I know I can depend on you guys, because this other team is some challenges. And you might actually come to possibly an alternative solution. Maybe, let's say, the other team is challenged, but then maybe another option of resolution could be, hey, you know what? We don't mind coaching them to get them
right.
to speak. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't have those conversations, you may not know what is in your boss's head, and what are the problems they are dealing with as well, because they can't go around telling people all the problems that they are facing, right? Yeah.
I think this is something which is very common, especially when I was telling my juniors at a time, right? To say that if you got any beef with anyone, you need to be able to speak to that person directly, and not speak to someone else, because you don't know what is in that person's mind. You don't know if you don't know what's in the person's mind, how are you going to change anything if you don't know what's in the person's mind, right?
Yeah.
And the only way to
And you
unlock that
cannot
is
assume.
to, yeah, exactly. But most of the time they choose not to. They choose to go out lunch with someone else and to tell their own stories about someone else. And then both of them tell each other, convince each other to quit the job. Um, so I think yes, you're right.
It's like
The
Chinese whispers lah. The more you keep talking,
Yeah,
talking, talking, you talk until you believe that that is actually the reality.
the
Maybe
reality.
it's not.
Yes, agree. Um, So I think let's get into before we close this, get into something a bit more practical for this person, like some suggestions on also how to say no to some of these projects which is coming in, right? In this case, right? So I think by having conversations, that's great. I think also the letter writer can also consider to some tips and tricks in terms of like possibly saying yes but, so rather than saying no, right? So yes but, so what does that look like? So that means, for example, if I take it on, yes, but let's say if I just do the planning bit but the execution done by someone else, is this possible or not, right? So that is also not just taking it all as it is. Sometimes some leaders, they just pass it down because they just need something to get done. And I think for an A team or an A player, they will think that, oh, I need to make this perfect. but actually maybe what the leader wants, senior leader wants, is just something which is not perfect. I mean, I'm not saying not perfect. I mean, it's just instead of 10 out of 10, I just need a 6 out of 10 for this. So it's able to also clarify to say, so boss, understand. So you're looking at 10 out of 10, or you're looking 6 out of 10. So from that you can say, okay, sure, I got it. No, I've got a previous deck which I can use or whatever. But a lot of times we don't clarify with our bosses. We think that, when the boss were to cough and say, oh, I think these walls would look nice in red, and next thing you know, you spend the whole evening paint the whole wall red in this case, but it's just a passing remark. Yeah. So these are some of the practical things I think that the letter writer can consider. But more importantly, let's quickly recap, right? Anything else to add on before I recap?
No, I think, yeah.
Okay, so what the letter writer should reframe are a few things. Number one, not to come across as a complainer, but to look at every such moments to be an opportunity to have conversations with the higher ups in this case, right? So to reframe that, and when we have conversations with our bosses, it's very important not to come across as emotional, but to be able to present our case backed up with data in this case. And data here means what? So means, for example, what does the impact, the consequences to the business if these things were to continue, right? So that's important. And also, and be surprised that when you have such conversations with your bosses, they may be revealing certain things to you which you may not even know. And then because of that you have more empathy of why that you're actually doing more. And because of that, sometimes creativity will be sparked, new things can come out. Like, for example, I can help the other team, or maybe I can coach the other team, or I can understand where you're coming from. So these are things which you call it the adult conversation. I think this is important. Just one thing before we close. I think a lot of times juniors may not want to be able to, not juniors, but kind of like middle managers, they do not want to bring this up to their bosses. Because our bosses are busy, they don't understand and so on, right? So as much as what we are telling this letter writer now is to have courage to have this kind of adult conversation. But I'm just wondering, from a senior C-suite position, what can a C-suite person do to encourage such conversations from the middle managers?
Um, I, to be honest, Carson, I don't really know. I think it is really in demeanor, and how ones carry themselves, right? Because I often hear this thing about, oh, we can create psychological safety, but no matter what, right? I still think that people won't unless you are being transparent yourself. Like, you are being open and being transparent to a degree, right? We always cannot divulge like
Of course,
business
of course.
related stuff, but like, if you come across as genuine and being really open, then I think that breaks a bit of the invisible barrier already, right? And then you can try to create programs. So, for example, right now in Malaysia, Omnicom Media Group Malaysia kind of started it before I moved on. We started what we call lunch with leads. So the exco members, you know, so we had people who write in who wants to be part of this program and which exco member they pick to have a conversation with.
Wow.
And we do that. And so I think that helps. And honestly, this I mean, it's not a very it's not similar scenarios, but I would say similar solutions, which is to have the courage to have the conversation. And I was quite happy because recently I caught up with the person, and she was telling me about a problem, and she's like, but I'm already going to plan to speak to my manager. And I
Wow. Yeah.
and 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 from the first time, when I met her, and then to where it was, like, first time she was crying, and then she's like you can physically see the discomfort as I'm trying to say, you need to have the conversation.
Yeah.
The physical discomfort that was appearing in her face, to now say, I know I already scheduled a conversation.
Wow.
And I paused her there and I said, firstly, did you realize what the progress you have made? And then she was like, huh? No, like it didn't dawn on her what I was saying. And I said that the fact that you know you're going to have the conversation and you've already made the action to do that is a progress from where you were, like so difficult, like so afraid to have conversation, to have now come to realize that I will have the conversation. I mean, having said that, actually, a couple of months back, she already had the conversation. It's just there are new problems that are emerging. But the fact that she went past that hurdle, it has dawned on her that fear is actually not as, it's not like fear is bigger in our mind than it is in reality.
And with that, we will end today's conversation. I've learned a lot from the stories, and I'm sure that all of you listeners here watching this learn a lot from the stories on top of all the pointers to do and so on. I think the stories are the one that will always stick.